thug tried to punch a Royal Guard veteran in front of the Royal Guard, but instantly got put in his place. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and follow for more powerful stories that will stay with you. Now let's begin. The square outside the gates of the presidential estate in D.C. simmered with lazy energy. Tourists wandered with iced coffees in hand, snapping photos, murmuring in awe. At the center of this slow-moving tide stood a ceremonial guard, tall and unwavering in his bright red uniform, his face carved from discipline. He didn't blink, didn't breathe wrong. Not even the weight of the humid summer air or the constant shutter clicks made him move. Beside him, a proud, coal-black horse stood still, its mane catching the light like threads of silk. It snorted softly now and then, but even the horse seemed to understand the dignity of this moment. Then came a disruption, the rhythmic clomp of boots, loud, careless, uneven. A man burst through the crowd like a drunk bowling ball. He reeked of whiskey and cheap beer, his stained flannel shirt hanging off one shoulder, and his breath trailed behind him like a punch. "Heh! Would you look at this shit?" he barked, voice thick and slurred, his words tripping over each other like they were drunk too. The man staggered closer, pointing with a grimy finger. "You for real, man? Just standing there like some damn toy soldier?" His lips twisted into a crooked sneer. "A horse, too? What is this? Some Civil War cosplay? Y'all lost or something?" He let out a ragged laugh and blew a wet raspberry in the guard's direction. People in the crowd started shifting, uncomfortable now. The air smelled of stale booze and sweat. Parents tugged their kids back, others looked away, unsure if they should film or step in. The man didn't notice, or didn't give a damn. He leaned in, eyes bloodshot and wild, swaying as he spoke. "Bet you think you're hot shit, huh? All dolled up in your red-ass suit, standing next to this big old pony like you're in some fucking movie." Still, the guard didn't budge. His eyes stared ahead, calm, impassive. The horse gave a quiet stomp, nostrils flaring, sensing the rising tension. "Say something," the drunk bellowed, stumbling closer. "What, you mute? You ain't allowed to talk? What are you, some kind of brainwashed Barbie doll with a damn rifle and a freaking horse?" He began to circle, dragging his feet in exaggerated arcs, arms flailing like a performer on a cheap comedy stage. "I've seen mannequins with more personality than you." The guard didn't flinch. Not when the man burped inches from his face, not when his words turned to spit. The horse remained still too, ears twitching slightly, the only sign it was alive. "You ain't protecting jack shit," the man slurred louder. "You're just another asshole playing dress-up for the camera phones. Ain't no war here, soldier boy. What the hell are you even standing here for? This ain't goddamn Afghanistan." He shoved a finger into the guard's shoulder, hard, aggressive. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Still nothing. That only made him angrier. "Oh, so you are a tough guy, huh?" he barked, spinning toward the people watching. "Y'all worship this freak like he's some war hero? Guy ain't done nothing. Just standing here like a goddamn statue with his weird-ass horse." Someone in the crowd shouted, "Hey, back off!" Another voice added, "Dude, leave him alone." But he wasn't listening. The man was locked in now, face flushed red, eyes locked onto the soldier like a drunk pit bull. "What, you can't even blink? Shit, what did they do to you, man? You a robot or what?" He growled, voice starting to crack. Then he leaned in again, breath hot and sour. "Fucking pathetic, you and your dumb horse." The horse let out a warning huff this time, a low noise that made a few people back up instinctively. But the guard remained frozen, locked in his silent code of duty, indifferent to the chaos unraveling inches from his face. "Take a good look, folks. This your big-time hero?" the man hollered, his voice dripping with mockery and booze-fueled bravado. "Ain't even got the balls to stand up for himself. What a goddamn joke." The wide plaza had gone unsettlingly silent, the warm hum of tourist chatter now replaced by a stillness so tight it buzzed. All eyes locked on the unfolding confrontation. People whispered in anxious bursts, questioning if they should step in. but no one dared move. The man's smirk twisted wider. The soldier's unflinching stillness seemed to light a fire beneath the drunk's feet. "You're nothing," he spat, voice low and laced with venom. "And I'm gonna make damn sure everybody here knows it." His laugh rang out, loud and sharp, cutting through the heavy quiet like a snapped wire. Phones were raised higher. No one blinked. No one breathed. He took another step, close enough now to feel the heat radiating off the soldier's body. He jammed his finger into the man's chest with a sharp, arrogant jab, his grin darkening into something uglier. "What's the matter, huh? Gonna just stand there like a damn mannequin? You can't even defend yourself? Shit, you ain't even a man." Still, the soldier remained silent, still as a shadow frozen in the evening sun. His posture was perfect, eyes locked straight ahead, unbroken, untouched. To him, the man might as well have been air, useless wind. The lack of reaction only seemed to infuriate the thug more. He began pacing in front of the guard like some feral beast, throwing his hands up, his voice rising with every pass. "Oh, I get it. You think you're better than me, standing there stiff as stone, hiding behind that damn costume. But you ain't noble. You're just a coward, some government puppet who forgot how to speak." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Tension climbed the spines of tourists like cold water. One or two brave voices cut through. "Leave him alone," someone called, but the man didn't even flinch. His focus was glued to the soldier, like a drunk actor playing to a silent audience. He leaned in, breath sour and heavy, his voice a coarse whisper. "You don't scare me. You ain't no untouchable hero. You're nothing." Then he stepped back and spun toward the crowd, lifting his arms like a man taking a bow. "This is it, huh? This is what y'all came to see? A real American soldier? A man of honor? Well, here he is, letting me walk all over him like he's carved out of damn wood, some hero." The tension in the air was almost physical now, thick as fog. Parents clutched their kids tighter, shielding their eyes. Elderly tourists shook their heads, lips pressed tight in disapproval. Younger onlookers stared through their phone screens, caught somewhere between thrill and dread. It felt like the whole plaza was holding its breath, waiting for the snap. And the drunk wasn't done. With one sudden shove, he rammed his palm into the guard's shoulder, hard. The soldier's body swayed slightly from the force, the heel of his boot dragging an inch, but still, no reaction. Not a word, not a glance. His silence had become a wall, unbreakable. "Oh, so you're just gonna take it, huh?" the man sneered. "What, too scared to fight back? What the hell's wrong with you?" The crowd stirred restlessly now. Some began to edge forward, concern finally outweighing hesitation. A woman gripped her husband's arm and whispered, "Someone's gotta stop this. What if he snaps?" But before anyone could move, the drunk's voice rose again, louder, meaner, uglier. He raised his arms like a preacher at a pulpit, his anger turned into a twisted sermon. "You're pathetic," he shouted. "You don't deserve 1 ounce of the respect people give you. You're not a hero. You're not even a man. You're just a statue, a fucking prop for selfies and school trips." Then, with a reckless grin, he reached out one more time and smacked the guard's bearskin hat sideways, knocking it askew on his head. Then, slicing through the crackling tension like a blade through fabric, a voice rang out, low, steady, but unmistakably firm. "That's enough." The drunk man jerked his head around, eyes narrowing, his swagger stalling as he searched the crowd for the voice that dared interrupt him. An older man stepped forward from the cluster of onlookers. His stride was slow, but purposeful, every movement grounded, every step deliberate. He wasn't tall, nor particularly broad, but there was a gravity about him that turned heads. The man's silver hair glinted beneath the afternoon sun, and his weathered face was lined not with weakness, but with memory of battles fought, sacrifices made, and years lived with discipline most could only imagine. The people parted to let him through, their murmurs silenced by his presence. He stopped a few feet from the drunk, spine straight, hands relaxed at his sides, and repeated, unwavering, "I said that's enough." The thug scoffed. his confidence kicking back in as he barked out a coarse laugh. "Oh, perfect. Now Grandpa's got something to say," he sneered, throwing an exaggerated glance at the crowd. "What's next? The damn national anthem?" His voice dripped with mockery, but the older man didn't so much as blink. "You're embarrassing yourself," he said evenly. "Walk away. Let the man do his job." The thug rolled his eyes with a snort. "Job? What job? Standing there playing mannequin for all these selfie-snapping tourists?" He waved a hand at the guard with a lazy, insulting gesture. "That guy ain't doing jack shit but staring into space." The older man took a step closer, his expression still calm, voice unshaken. "You don't have a damn clue what it takes to stand like that," he said, measured and deliberate. "The discipline, the training, the pressure. You see a uniform and assume it's just for show, but that man's doing more in silence than you've ever done in your life." The thug's grin flickered, just for a moment, then curled back into a sneer. He stepped toward the older man, closing the space between them. "And who the hell do you think you are?" he growled. "You think you're better than me? Just 'cause you sound like a Hallmark card?" The older man met his eyes without flinching, the weight of experience heavy in his voice. "I was one of him. Long time ago. Served in the Royal Guard when honor still meant something. That man you're mocking? He's not ignoring you. He's choosing not to crush you where you stand. You don't see it, but he could drop you in a second, and you wouldn't even see it coming." A ripple moved through the crowd. Some gasped, others nodded, their fear giving way to growing respect. But the thug wasn't finished. His face contorted, twisted with fresh rage as he stepped forward again, towering over the veteran. "Tough talk for an old man," he snarled. "Maybe it's time somebody shut you up for good." The older man held his ground, though a flicker of worry passed behind his eyes. Still, his voice remained steady. "Violence doesn't make you strong," he said. "It only makes you dangerous to people who don't deserve it. That's not strength. That's weakness in a costume." The thug's fists clenched. "Weak?" he hissed through his teeth. "I'll show you weak." Time seemed to slow as he raised his arm, muscles coiled, his fist flying through the air toward the old man's face. Cries rang out. "No!" Mothers shielding their children, phones shaking in trembling hands. But the punch never landed. In a flash, a figure moved. A blur of red and black broke the stillness. The silent guard, until now a statue of discipline, snapped to life. His arm shot out with lethal precision, catching the thug's fist mid-air. The grip was iron, unyielding. The crowd froze. A stunned silence fell. The older man blinked, stunned, finding himself suddenly behind the towering figure of the guard, now positioned protectively in front of him. The soldier hadn't said a word. He didn't need to. His eyes locked on the thug's with a quiet, unshakable intensity. The thug tried to pull back, but it was no use. The soldier's grip might as well have been stone. That was the first time the crowd truly saw him, not as a ceremonial fixture, not as a tourist attraction, but as a warrior holding back thunder. The plaza, moments ago a stage for humiliation, now pulsed with awe. The thug, breath short, eyes wide, knew it too. The thug squirmed, yanking against the guard's grip, but the confidence that once filled his voice had drained, replaced now by a thin thread of panic. "What the hell?" he mumbled, his voice shaking as he tried to make sense of the quiet strength holding him in place. But then came a voice, low, firm, and final, cutting through the murmuring crowd like the crack of a gavel. "That's enough." Silence swept over the plaza like a wave. The royal guard stepped forward, his movements calm and controlled, pressing the thug backward with effortless authority. Each step he took was measured, purposeful, and the crowd responded with a rising hum of awe and disbelief. Phones lifted high. People whispered, gasped, stared. He wasn't just standing anymore. He was leading. The older guard took a shaky breath, stepping back, his voice barely more than a whisper. "Thank you." But the soldier didn't look at him. His eyes were locked on the man before him, his hand tightening just slightly as he said, "You've gone too far. It ends here." The thug twisted his head, scanning the crowd as if still hoping someone, anyone, might come to his defense. But no one moved. The only thing waiting for him now were cold stares and disapproving eyes. The bravado was gone. What remained was a man unraveling in real time. He tugged, hard, trying to break free, but the soldier's grip was immovable. Quiet strength, forged through training and discipline. It wasn't a flashy show of power. It was something far more unnerving, steady, absolute. "Did you see that?" Someone near the back whispered, their voice wrapped in awe. He caught the guy like it was nothing. The phones kept rolling, capturing every moment as the man tried to claw back his pride. "Let me go!" he shouted, voice rising to desperation. "You're not supposed to move. You're just a damn statue, a decoration. You don't have the right to touch me." But the guard didn't so much as blink. His voice, when it came, was calm, unshaken and steeped in quiet command. "My duty is to protect," he said, his gaze unwavering. "And that includes protecting these people, from men like you." In a single, seamless move, the guard released the man's wrist, only to shift his weight, spin behind him, and twist the thug's arm behind his back in a sharp, precise maneuver. The man cried out as his knees buckled beneath the pressure, dropping him to the concrete with a choked yelp. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then, slowly, applause. It started soft, scattered, then grew in volume and conviction. Some clapped with wide eyes and wonder. Others nodded with silent respect. "Get the hell off me!" the thug shouted, his voice cracking like glass. "You can't do this!" The soldier leaned in slightly, his tone never changing. "You were warned," he said quietly. "I gave you every opportunity to stop. Now you'll face the consequences." The struggle in the man's body began to fade, like air seeping out of a balloon. His defiance drained away. His shoulders slumped. His voice dropped to a mutter. "This isn't fair." But the guard didn't move, didn't flinch. He stood with practiced stillness, holding the thug firm without malice or show. There was no rage in him, no pride, just calm precision, the poise of someone who didn't need to prove anything, because his presence alone already had. With the man subdued and humiliated on his knees before him, the guard finally spoke again, this time directly to him. His words were quiet but rang with truth, each syllable like a stone dropped into still water. "You think strength is about yelling louder than everyone else? About bullying people who can't fight back? That's not strength. That's cowardice." The thug didn't answer. His head stayed low, eyes locked on the pavement. "Real strength," the guard said, "is knowing when to act and when not to. It's holding your ground without losing control. It's using your power to shield others, not crush them." For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of the wind brushing through the trees. Then the plaza erupted in applause, loud, genuine, rising like thunder. "Well said!" someone shouted. Others echoed it, their faces bright with admiration, some even wiping tears from their eyes. And still the soldier stood, tall, composed, unshaken, not a symbol, a protector. The atmosphere across the plaza had shifted. What began as unease had melted into admiration. Where once there was tension, now stood reverence. The veteran of the Royal Guard, who had been quietly observing only steps away, moved forward, his posture humble, his voice shaking, but resolute. "You didn't have to do that," he said, the emotion in his words catching slightly in his throat. "But you did. You stepped in when it counted. You protected me and reminded all of us what honor really looks like." The Royal Guard gave a subtle nod, his face as composed as ever, but there was something more in his eyes now. The guard didn't even blink. "This isn't about being better," he answered evenly. "It's about doing what's right. And what's right is making sure people like you don't get to hurt anyone else." While the thug remained pinned by the guard's powerful grasp, two uniformed security officers emerged from the perimeter, clearly summoned by the commotion. Their eyes widened slightly as they took in the scene, the subdued man on his knees, the silent sentinel standing tall over him, unmoved, unshaken. One officer stepped forward and spoke with quiet respect. "We'll take it from here," The soldier released the thug's arm with precision, his movements exact and calm. The man winced as he was hauled up by the officers, his fight completely gone. The crowd broke into applause, some clapping fervently, others recording the moment with reverent silence. Cheers and calls of "thank you" echoed from all directions as the thug was escorted through the parted crowd, their stares heavy with judgment. He didn't look back. His head hung low as he was led away, his swagger dissolved into disgrace. And then something extraordinary happened. The soldier turned, finally, and met the veteran of the Royal Guard's eyes. For a brief beat, nothing moved. Then, in a gesture steeped in tradition, the Royal Guard raised his hand to his brow and delivered a formal salute, precise, proud, and full of weight. The veteran of the Royal Guard, chest rising with sudden emotion, answered the salute without hesitation, snapping to attention, his arm lifting with crisp familiarity. 2 generations of honor, one standing in the present, one echoing from the past, faced each other with shared understanding. Then, breaking protocol for the first and only time, the Royal Guard spoke, not quietly, but loud and clear. "Thank you for your service." He bowed his head with solemn grace, and beside him, the sleek black horse bowed too, lowering its head in mirrored reverence. The crowd held its breath, moved beyond words by the rare display of ceremony and soul. With no more fanfare, the guard turned back, the horse stepping in perfect unison beside him. Together, they returned to their post, and just like that, the moment vanished. The soldier stood once more in complete stillness, his posture straight, his red uniform pristine, his tall bearskin hat perfectly adjusted. The horse stilled beside him, both of them silent, composed, and statuesque. To the unknowing eye, it was as though nothing had happened at all. But to everyone who had stood there, witnessing the events of the past hour, everything had changed. He wasn't just a figure in a uniform anymore. He was the embodiment of duty, a protector who had broken silence not for glory, but for justice. The crowd began to disperse slowly, like waves pulling back from a shore. Their voices, hushed but full of wonder, lingered in the warm air. "That was unreal," a man said to no one in particular, his head still shaking. "He didn't even flinch." "And he never lost his cool," a woman added. "That's what strength really looks like." The veteran of the Royal Guard remained a moment longer, watching the guard, his spine straight, his heart full. The plaza quieted. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the stone, painting the scene in soft gold. The Royal Guard stood firm, as though the afternoon's events had never touched him. But to the children clutching their parents' hands, to the families watching the recordings on their phones, and to every witness whose breath had caught when a silent man became a shield, he would be remembered. "I'll never forget that," a young woman whispered to her friend, clutching her phone close. "He didn't just stand there. He protected that man, like it was nothing." Her friend nodded, stealing one last glance toward the post. "It wasn't just his strength," she murmured. "It was how he used it. Calm, controlled. That's what a real hero is." Not far away, a father knelt beside his wide-eyed son. "You see that man?" he asked, pointing toward the soldier. The boy nodded quickly, still stunned. "He didn't even yell, Dad," the boy whispered. "He just stopped the bad guy, like he was made of steel." His father smiled, brushing a hand through the boy's hair. "That's because real strength doesn't scream," he said. "It stands. Remember that." And in the background, unmoved, unwavering, the guard and his horse held their post, silent sentinels of courage, devotion, and something greater than words. The crowd had mostly thinned now, the air beginning to settle as the late afternoon sun dipped behind the buildings. But the veteran remained. He stood still in the open space, hands loosely clasped in front of him, eyes fixed on the young guard who had just stepped between him and danger without hesitation. The weight of it all wrapped around his chest, not heavy like sorrow, but deep and anchoring, like meaning rediscovered. His own years of service had left him with scars he never spoke of, and memories that had dulled with time, though never truly faded. He had once stood that post himself, spine straight, silence steady, boots planted firm before a nation. He knew what it took. The long hours, the internal war between reaction and restraint, the discipline it demanded of your soul. And yet today, in the shadow of the marble steps and fluttering flags, watching that guard step forward in defense of a stranger, he felt something stir inside him that he hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not in the flag, not in the uniform, but in what they stood for. The young man in red hadn't acted out of ego or impulse. He hadn't tried to impress a crowd. He didn't seek praise. He simply saw something wrong and did what needed to be done. The veteran recognized it instantly. That wasn't training. That wasn't muscle memory. That was honor, pure and unshaken. His throat tightened as he watched the guard and his horse return to position, resuming their post as though nothing had happened, as if heroism had no need for recognition, and maybe it didn't. Not the real kind, anyway. The older man took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the quiet dignity of the moment. His chest lifted a little higher. His posture straightened. For a long while, he didn't move. Then, with one final glance at the silent sentinel before him, he turned and began to walk. His steps were lighter than they had been in years. That day, in the face of drunken mockery and empty cruelty, the royal guard had remained composed, unwavering, not for pride and not for glory, but for the simple truth that someone needed to. His strength wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It didn't demand applause. It simply was. In a world addicted to noise, to outrage, to the rush of reaction, his stillness had become a thunderclap. The discipline, the courage, the quiet resolve. He didn't speak, but somehow he had said everything. And for those who stood in that plaza, for the veterans who remembered what it meant, for the children learning what to admire, and for every soul who had ever wondered if honor still existed, his silence echoed louder than any words. What about you? Have you ever witnessed someone rise to defend what's right in such a calm and resolute way? Share your stories in the comments. We'd love to hear how quiet courage has shaped your life. If this moment moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories about strength, sacrifice, and the quiet heroes walking among us. Until next time, remember, true strength doesn't shout. It stands, steady, silent, and always in service of something greater.